Have you ever had a really trying week? You've been burning the candle on both ends, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your job, your ministry, and you rationalize, I deserve a break, which is a good thing. But that break turned into a level of complacency, a level of going down some pathways and making some choices that open the door to something much worse. My name is Darian Claxon, and this is day 23 of 31 nuggets that I'm sharing from my new devotional, Bending Bows of Bronze, Subdue the Enemy Under Your Feet. And today we look at the weapon of self-preservation as it appears in our David narrative. In our last case study, we saw David experience victory over the Ammonites. Prior to that, he had taken down the Edomites and the Moabites and the Philistines, and he was just getting victory on every side. And when Joab and Abishai routed the Ammonites had retreated to their fortress of Rabbah, and they began this siege against Rabbah, and it was only a matter of time before they surrendered. The Bible says in 2 Samuel chapter 11, in the springtime when kings traditionally go to war, David decided to stay home. Now, this small detail portrays self-preservation. It is basically David saying, I've done enough. Even though this was traditionally a time that the kings would lead their armies into battle. They didn't have to do it every time, but this was a time where it was expected. But given all of the dozens of victories that he had been a part of, that his army, by God's power, had brought about, he rationalizes and says, you know what, I'm gonna sit this one out. I stand too much to lose for me to get hurt or even killed at the height of my reign, of my power in Israel. So while he is home, a place where he's not supposed to be, he sees a beautiful woman, Bathsheba, bathing. Now, David moves any excuse for foul play by asking who she is. So David, who himself is a married man, finds out that Bathsheba is married to one of his mighty men, Uriah, that she is a daughter of another mighty man, Eliam, and that she is the granddaughter of his friend and counselor, Ahithophel. That should have ended things right there. But when he gives into this self-preservation of what he deserves because he's been working so hard, because he is the king, he has all this success, there is a spirit of entitlement that leads to a weapon we'll talk about tomorrow, appetite indulging. So he summons Bathsheba, takes advantage of her. Let's call it what it is. This was rape because she could not say no as a married woman to a king's request. When she becomes pregnant, panic drives David to engage in further self-preservation, covering up, bringing her husband home, getting him drunk so they can mask the pregnancy timeline, and it will look like it is Uriah's baby and not his. And Uriah's integrity is not allowing David to get away with this self-preservation. And so David drafts a death order carried by Uriah himself into the battlefield to Joab to have this nonsensical command, sending Uriah into the heat of battle. This, by the way, is the same tactic that Saul used back when David was fighting on his behalf against the Philistines, and Saul wanted to kill him, but he wanted it to be by the hand of the enemy. In that case, it didn't work, but in this case, Uriah is killed. David claims Bathsheba as his wife, and this young prince is now welcomed into the palace. David is so sure that he's gotten away with the crime that when Nathan comes with this parable about a rich man who stole and killed a poor man's pet lamb to feed his guests, he pronounces judgment on the rich man, not realizing that he was really pronouncing judgment on himself. The man who did this must surely die, and he should restore fourfold what he stole. And so Nathan exposes him in front of everybody. You are that man. Now, how did David get to this place where now he's publicly exposed for this murder and this rape and this scandal, none of which had to happen had he checked those thoughts of self-preservation at the very beginning? And Nathan pronounces a curse. Sword will never depart from your household. There's going to be adversity in your own home, and the child that was born to David and Bathsheba would die as a consequence. But none of this had to happen. David found himself idle on the palace roof. Your palace roof might be a late night call that you decide to make or you decide to receive while you're being idle, an incognito browser tab, a hidden habit or secret purchase. Here's a challenge that I want us to do together over the next 7 days. This is actually one of the marching orders for day 23, and that's to take one small risky act of obedience where normally you would self protect. Admit weakness instead of feigning strength. Apologize honestly instead of covering up or shifting blame. Refuse a shady shortcut and thank God for his real protection. If you have a journal, write it down. Include that in your prayers. I encourage you to grab a copy of this book, and we actually have spaces at the end of each of the marching orders and the victory declarations for you to write your thoughts. Now, people who have bought this book say it's not enough space, and sometimes when they get started, they can't stop writing, but this is a good way to start if you don't have the habit. Let's move from victim mindset, where we're allowing Satan to run roughshod over us and making excuse for our faults, to a victor mindset. Tomorrow, we'll look at another slippery slope that, for one of the people that I've counseled in spiritual warfare, ended up being a huge open door for spiritual attacks. But there's a simple way to close that door, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll see you then.